My name is Hugo Wilson.
And I'm Brittany Hill, and we did our research on ovarian cancer, which is the 8th most common cancer in new cases for women.
It is the 5th most common for death.
It occurs in the ovaries.
And the symptoms are vague.
It cannot be detected with a pap smear.
And the only way to get rid of it is through surgery to remove it.
Hi, my name is Cassidy Williamson.
I'm Erin Hagan.
I'm Lizzie Cochran, and today we're going to be talking about cervical cancer. Cervical cancer has a lower incidence rate than ovarian cancer, and it occurs in the cervix, which is the lower part of the uterus.
Cervical cancer occurs most often in women over 30, and HPV is the main cause of cervical cancer. And the symptoms don't occur until the progression of the disease occurs, and then the pap smear is the most common test for detecting cervical.
Okay, so our group chose cervical cancer because we were interested in how it affects women and what puts us at risk for getting it.
And our group chose ovarian cancer because endometriosis runs rapid in my family, and the doctor told me I pretty much have it, so we tried to research that but couldn't find much, so we went with ovarian cancer. Our two groups decided to come together because we didn't even know much about the differences between ovarian and cervical cancer, and we thought it would be beneficial if we could go around and educate the women around us.
Now let's go see how educated the public is. Woo!
Can you tell me the difference between ovarian cancer and cervical cancer?
One's in your ovaries, and the other one's in your cervix.
Do you know any other differences?
Nope.
Do you think the difference between cervical cancer and ovarian cancer is?
Well, the cervix and ovaries are two different areas, right? So it would be two different places in the whole woman sexual life, right?
Can you think of any other differences? Okay, thank you for your time. Seeing what everyone thought the differences were between cervical and ovarian cancer, these are the actual differences. For cervical cancer, taking birth control for 5 or more years or having 3 or more children increases your chances of getting it, while with ovarian, taking birth control for 10 or more years significantly drops your chances. There's no gene involved with cervical cancer, while ovarian cancer has the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene involved, and if you have either of these, your chances go up 5 to 10%. Another thing is, for cervical cancer, pap smears are the key factor for detection, while ovarian symptoms are the key factor. Symptoms for cervical cancer include abnormal bleeding or discharge after sex, while ovarian cancer has many symptoms, which are vague, but can include bloating, hormone disorders, loss of appetite, or weight loss.
What race do I think has the highest incidence of ovarian cancer? I think white women. And what race do I think has the highest mortality rate? I think black women.
And why do you think that?
Because historically, white women have had more access to better healthcare practices and things like that. And even though their rates are higher, I don't think a black woman would be as likely as to get the same amount of care as a white woman.
And do you feel the same way about cervical cancer?
I feel the same way about cervical cancer.
And then black women have the highest mortality rate, or really minorities have the highest mortality rate of cervical and ovarian cancer.
So I asked my peers who is most at risk and why. So when we were doing research, we found that for ovarian cancers, through various studies, a non-Hispanic white woman has the highest incident rate. But, next up comes Hispanic, and then African American, and lastly Asian. However, the mortality rate shows that African American women have the highest rate, which is also a global problem, not just in the United States. For cervical cancer, Hispanic women have the highest incidence rate, but then again, the highest mortality rate is for African American women. And as you can see, in this chart, the reason why many people are dying of this.
Hi, Catherine. I was just wondering, did you get the HPV shot?
Yes, I did.
All 3 of them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Hi, Maddie. Did you get the HPV shot?
Yep.
All 3 of them?
Yep, all 3.
Thanks.
As you can see, most people get the HPV vaccination, and the vaccine protects against the types of HPV that most often cause cervical cancer. It is given in a series of shots. It is recommended for 11 and 12-year-old girls. It is also recommended for girls and women aged 13 through 26 who did not previously get the vaccination or all of the shots.
How did you know to get your Gardasil shot?
In middle school, my mom told me I had to go get it at my physician's.
How did you know to get your Gardasil shot?
I learned about it in health class, and then my doctor recommended it for me.
Many Caucasians know and have learned they need the HPV vaccination, but cervical cancer rates are very highly based on social determinants. Races living in low-income areas, such as African Americans and Hispanics, with low educational attainment will not be taught the importance of the HPV vaccination and may not be able to afford health insurance or copays, so they won't have a doctor telling them to get vaccinated and reminding them why it's so important.
Okay, your first question is, what do you think the biggest risk factor for women for getting ovarian cancer is?
I don't know.
Okay,
Not going to the doctor, getting checked.
okay. And what do you think the biggest risk factor for getting cervical cancer for women is?
I got nothing.
There you have it. What do you think is the biggest risk factor for women for getting ovarian cancer?
Smoking.
Okay. And then what do you think is the biggest risk factor for women for getting cervical cancer?
Smoking.
Okay, I asked about the biggest risk factors, and here's what they actually are. For cervical cancer, smoking puts you at risk. Taking birth control for over 5 years puts you at risk. Giving birth to 3 or more children puts you at risk. And contracting the HPV or HIV viruses puts you at the highest risk. For ovarian cancer, smoking also puts you at risk. And when you reach the age between 50 and 60 years, that's when it's most commonly diagnosed. And then if you have the gene BRCA1 or 2, it puts you at risk. And then also not having any kids puts you at risk for obtaining ovarian cancer.